Hi, friends. I'm coming to you today not so much with a sermon question, but just some additional thoughts that come on the heels of Pastor Dan's message from this last Sunday. As always, you can go back if you missed it or you need more reminders. You can always go back on our website and look at our sermon archives, and I encourage you to do so. But Pastor Dan looked at, as we're continuing in our sermon series on the book of Psalms this summer, he looked at Psalm 72, and he looked at that category of Psalms that we consider to be what are called the majestic or the messianic Psalms, because they speak to a coming king, a coming Messiah one day who will come and who will make that which is wrong right. And there's, of course, looking forward to not only a king, but to the King of Kings, Jesus coming. Now, you may not have known this, but the Messianic Psalms, so there are 150 Psalms in total, but of those 150, the Messianic Psalms, at least one Messianic prophecy shows up in at least 25 of the 150 Psalms. So you're talking about one out of every six. This is a pretty common theme in the book of Psalms. And I just wanted to point out to you, in addition to Psalm 72, which Pastor Dan looked at, just some of the prophecies that we find in the book of Psalms. We don't normally think of the book of Psalms as a book of prophecy. We think about it as a book of praise and of thanksgiving and of song and of rejoicing to God, and it is that. But there are also some key prophecies about the Messiah that Jesus fulfilled in his coming. For instance, in the book of Psalms, concerning the Messiah's birth, you'll find out about how the Messiah comes from the lineage of David. That's Psalm 89. How the Messiah will come for all people. That's Psalm 18. The Messiah will be called by God while still in the womb. Psalm 22. We'll come back to Psalm 22. Concerning the Messiah's nature and name, the Messiah will be called the King of the Jews. Psalm 2. The Messiah will be the Son of God. Again, Psalm 2. The Messiah is God, Psalm 45. The Messiah will be eternal, Psalm 102. The Messiah is the creator of all things, Psalm 102. The Messiah will be rejected, Psalm 118. Concerning the Messiah's ministry, the Messiah will do God's will, Psalm 40. The Messiah will communicate a message of mercy. The Messiah will be angered by unethical practices by the Jews in the temple. The Messiah will teach in parables. The Messiah will calm the stormy sea. The Messiah will act with righteousness. All of that is in the Psalms. I want to continue. Concerning the Messiah's betrayal, death, and resurrection, political and religious leaders will conspire against the Messiah. That's Psalm 2. Again, now, Psalm 22, as I said, we'd get back to that. There's so many different prophecies in Psalm 22 about the coming Messiah, how the Messiah will feel forsaken by God at his crucifixion. The Messiah will pray without ceasing before his death. The Messiah will be despised and rejected by his own. The Messiah will be mocked. Unbelievers will say to the Messiah, "He trusted in God, let him now deliver him." The Messiah will be abandoned by his disciples. The Messiah will be crucified. The Messiah will thirst while dying. The Messiah's hands and feet will be pierced. The Messiah's garments will be parted among the soldiers through the casting of lots. All of that's in Psalm 22, and then a few more. The Messiah will be accused by false witnesses, Psalm 27. The Messiah will cry out to God, "Into thy hands I commend my spirit," Psalm 31. The Messiah will have no bones broken, Psalm 34. The Messiah will be silent as a lamb before his accuser, Psalm 38. The Messiah will be offered gall mingled with vinegar while dying, Psalm 69. And the Messiah will be resurrected, Psalm 16. All of this, and these are just a sampling of the different prophecies that we see in the book of Psalms. And again, we're thinking about what they have to tell us about this king who's going to come, who's greater than any political leader that you or I could ever imagine, because this Messiah is going to come and rule in a way that you and I most need. He's going to rule on behalf of those who cannot speak up for themselves. He's going to rule and be the king over all other kings. And if you think about it, here's one of the reasons why I want to point this out to you. It's amazing that all of these things would be fulfilled in Jesus himself. Even the Psalms, hundreds of years before Jesus came, were speaking about the once and coming Messiah, Jesus himself, who fulfilled all of these things, not by coincidence, but because God keeps his promises and because God is able to fulfill that which is prophesied beforehand. But another reason why this is so important and why I love it is because if you think about it, this is really the whole theme of Scripture going all the way back to Genesis in the Garden of Eden. What we see is we see a prophecy in Genesis 3 after the man and woman sin and go their own way, away from God, that we see a prophecy of once again, one who would come and who would defeat the serpent and all evil once and for all. And that is speaking about Jesus. This is the message that is threaded throughout all of Scripture, that there is a king who is coming to rule, a king who is coming to reign, a king who is coming to make a people who will follow his reign. And that's the message that Jesus came proclaiming, the message of the kingdom, that Jesus' kingdom is not just coming in the future, but that it has come with Jesus coming. Jesus came to rule and to reign over all. So the application for you and for me is that we can either accept and bow down to Jesus' rule and reign as Messiah, or we can reject him as our Messiah. There's no third option here. To not make a decision of accepting or rejecting is to actually make a decision passively to reject. And we know that one day every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. And Pastor Dan reminded us about this in his message on Sunday, why it is important now, while you and I have breath, to make peace with the King and to recognize that the King came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for you and for me. I plead with you, friends, and I plead with myself to live under the rule and reign of this King of Kings and Lord of Lords who has come, that we read about in the book of Psalms and that we see Jesus fulfill so beautifully throughout his life. Thanks so much for joining us today. I hope that encourages you as it's encouraged me.